Right now, $1.8 trillion in commercial real estate loans are sitting on a countdown timer set for 2026. Office vacancy hit a 30-year high. AI adoption is eliminating white-collar jobs faster than anyone predicted. If you're living in one of these 15 cities, you're standing exactly where all three forces collide hardest. Number 15, Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford holds the third highest foreclosure rate in the country, while Connecticut loses population faster than almost any other state. The city's economy depends on insurance companies that are downsizing and office workers who aren't coming back. Downtown vacancy already exceeds 20% before the 2026 refinancing cliff even hits. Your chance of becoming a victim of crime in Hartford is 1 in 30. The city has one of the highest violent crime rates in America, including a murder rate that ranks among the nation's worst. Connecticut's homelessness increased 13% from 2023 to 2024, and Hartford accounts for a disproportionate share. Between 2010 and 2020, the city lost 11% of its population. Commercial buildings securing those maturing loans are worth maybe 60 cents on the dollar compared to origination. When banks stop extending in 2026, Hartford's tax revenue collapses while maintaining infrastructure for a population that no longer exists. Median household income is $54,000, while cost of living rivals cities with twice the economic opportunity. Number 14, Charleston, West Virginia. West Virginia posts the second lowest real GDP per capita at just $34,000. Charleston built its economy around coal, chemicals, and government jobs, two industries in terminal decline and one that shrinks during federal budget cuts. Population peaked in 1960 and has dropped steadily ever since. The unemployment rate sits above 5%, while median income is $38,000. The state ranks dead last in infrastructure investment and 48th in education. When recession hits and federal spending contracts, Charleston loses the government jobs propping up its economy. The coal industry isn't coming back, and chemical plants are automating. During 2008, Charleston's unemployment hit 9% and took 6 years to recover. That was before AI started eliminating the administrative jobs that make up 23% of employment in government-heavy cities. West Virginia's population is aging faster than almost anywhere, meaning fewer workers contributing to tax revenue while service demand increases. Number 13. Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippi has the lowest median income in America at $49,000 and highest unemployment rate in the South. Jackson's labor force participation is only 58%, meaning 42% of working-age adults aren't even looking for jobs anymore. Jackson's infrastructure is literally crumbling. The water system failed in 2022, leaving 150,000 residents without clean water for weeks. When commercial property values collapse in 2026, the city can't afford to fix pipes, let alone fund schools or public safety. Mississippi's real GDP per capita is $34,000, lowest in the nation. The median home value is $91,000. That's not affordability, that's nobody wanting to live there. Property taxes are high relative to income, which drives out anyone who can afford to leave. The state depends heavily on federal transfers, so when recession hits and federal budgets tighten, Jackson gets crushed twice. Number 12. Little Rock, Arkansas. Arkansas posts real GDP per capita of $43,000, ranking 45th nationally. Little Rock's downtown office vacancy already exceeds 18%, and major employers like Dillard's and Axiom have been downsizing for years. When 2026 refinancing hits, Little Rock's banks are disproportionately exposed to commercial loans they can't extend. Arkansas unemployment sits at 3.9%, which sounds fine until you realize jobs mostly pay below median wage. The state ranks 44th in median household income. You can find work, but it won't pay enough to matter. During recessions, Arkansas historically sees unemployment spike to 7% or higher with weak unemployment insurance and limited safety nets. Little Rock's population peaked in 1980 and has been flat since. The metro area grows through sprawl while the urban core hollows out. When commercial real estate crashes, The city maintains infrastructure for ghost buildings while tax revenue disappears. Number 11. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit's population dropped from 1.8 million to 630,000. The city covers 139 square miles, but only 36% is occupied. Maintaining empty neighborhoods costs Detroit $30 per resident compared to 11 in walkable cities. They demolished 4,200 structures between 2014 and 2019 alone, with 17,000 vacant buildings still scattered throughout. Detroit's murder rate sits at 49.7 per 100,000 residents, one of the highest in America. Despite recent improvements, the city ranks third nationally for violent crime. When unemployment rises and recession hits, crime historically surges. Office vacancy exceeds 24% before 2026. When commercial loans mature and banks stop extending, those buildings get foreclosed or returned to lenders. Either way, tax revenue evaporates. Median household income is $34,000. Half the national average, poverty rate hits 36%. The automotive industry is automating faster than expected. AI and robotics replace assembly workers, while white-collar jobs in finance and administration get eliminated entirely. Detroit depends on an industry actively shrinking its workforce with no backup plan. Number 10. Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland lost 61% of its population between 1950 and 2020. The city spends 3 times more per capita on infrastructure than comparable European cities because services are spread across empty neighborhoods. Public transit ridership dropped 74% since 1950, and the RTA bus system loses 50 million annually. Cleveland's violent crime rate is 33.8 per 100,000, among the highest for medium-sized cities. The city has 7,500 vacant buildings and 12,000 vacant lots. When recession hits, expect those numbers to double. Commercial real estate faces double crisis. Office vacancy sits at 23% before 2026, and property values haven't recovered from 2008. Median home price downtown is $67,000, while suburban Rocky River averages $285. Anyone with resources left decades ago. Cleveland's economy depends on healthcare, manufacturing, and financial services. Healthcare stays relatively stable, but manufacturing is automating rapidly, and financial services face massive AI-driven job cuts. When layoffs hit in 2026, Cleveland's weak tax base collapses further. Number 9. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh's population crashed from 677,000 in 1950 to 302,000 today. The city's topography makes sprawl insanely expensive. Building highways through hills costs millions per mile, yet they built them anyway, cutting downtown off from the waterfront. Public transit ridership dropped 70% since 1970 as everyone moved to car-dependent suburbs. Average suburban household spends $11,200 yearly on vehicles, because buses don't reach most areas. Office vacancy exceeds 21%, while the city maintains infrastructure for twice its current population. Pittsburgh's economy depends on healthcare, education, and tech. Healthcare is recession-proof, education faces declining enrollment, and tech is eliminating white-collar jobs. 2 out of 3 pillars are shaking. Allegheny County has 1.2 million residents, but only 302,000 live in city limits. When commercial real estate crashes and suburban commuters stop coming downtown, Pittsburgh keeps empty buildings while suburbs keep the tax base. Number 8. Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore's population dropped from 950,000 in 1950 to 585,000 today. The city maintains infrastructure for its 1950 population with half the tax base. Baltimore has 16,000 vacant buildings rotting throughout East and West Baltimore. Baltimore's murder rate is 58.1 per 100,000, second highest in America. Despite recent improvements dropping homicides 18% in 2025, the city still ranks among the most dangerous nationwide. When unemployment rises in recession, violent crime historically spikes. Average city household pays $3,200 yearly in property taxes, while suburban households pay $2,100 for better services. Anyone who can afford to leave does. Median household income in city is $54,000, while Howard County averages $120,000. The wealth fled to suburbs decades ago. City kept the poverty, crime, and crumbling infrastructure. When office vacancy spikes in 2026 and employers downsize, suburban commuters disappear. Businesses depending on them, restaurants, retail services, collapse immediately. The MTA serves 260,000 daily riders, but suburban commuters mostly drive. Number 7. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis population peaked at 856,000 in 1950 and crashed to 286,000 by 2020. Property taxes in the city are double suburban rates, so anyone who can afford to leaves. The city maintains 3,200 lane miles of streets for a fraction of historic population at $240 million annually, while tax revenue keeps dropping. St. Louis holds the highest murder rate in America at 87.2 per 100,000 residents. Despite a 22% improvement from 2024, it remains the nation's murder capital. Gun violence accounts for 85% of all homicides. When recession increases desperation, crime surges. North St. Louis has entire neighborhoods of vacant lots. The city has 7,500 vacant buildings and 12,000 vacant lots. When 2026 hits and commercial real estate collapses, those numbers increase dramatically. Average household spends 22% of income on transportation because a grocery trip means driving 3 miles minimum. Meanwhile, suburban St. Charles County added 100,000 residents since 1990, all car dependent. They work in the city but pay taxes to wealthy suburbs. St. Louis keeps the problems while suburbs keep the revenue. Number 6. Buffalo, New York. Buffalo's population collapsed from 580,000 in 1950 to 278,000 today. The Kensington Expressway carved through Humboldt Parkway in 1958, creating permanent segregation that still defines Buffalo's geography. The city has 17,000 vacant structures and 8,000 empty lots while maintaining infrastructure built for twice its current population. Buffalo households spend $6,200 yearly just on fuel because public transit is mathematically impossible in sprawled suburbs. Local economy depends on healthcare, education, and light manufacturing. Healthcare stays stable, education faces declining enrollment as young people leave, and manufacturing is automating rapidly. Office vacancy already exceeds 19% before 2026. Commercial property values are declining, and banks are playing extend and pretend on maturing loans. That game ends in 2026 when they have to take back buildings worth less than the debt. Number 5. Portland, Oregon. Portland's office vacancy jumped 4.4% in 12 months to hit 21.8%, one of the sharpest increases nationwide. The city built its economy on tech companies, now eliminating positions and consolidating space. Nike, Intel, and Columbia Sportswear all announced significant downsizing. Office asking rents dropped below national averages for the first time in a decade. That's not affordability, that's landlords desperate to fill space nobody wants. When commercial loans mature in 2026 at rates 75% higher than origination, buildings can't support debt service at current rental income. Portland also faces governance crisis. Downtown deterioration accelerated as homelessness and crime made the urban core less attractive. Businesses are leaving not just because of remote work, but because employees don't want to work downtown anymore. That combination doesn't reverse quickly. Portland's economy depends on tech, manufacturing, and healthcare. Tech is contracting, manufacturing is automating, and healthcare alone can't support infrastructure. Number 4. Austin, Texas. Austin saw the biggest office vacancy jump in America, 6.9% in a single year to hit 27.9%. The city that marketed itself as the next Silicon Valley just discovered those tech jobs can be done from anywhere or not at all. Austin's commercial pipeline included 5 million square feet under construction in 2023. By December 2024, That dropped to 3.5 million. Developers are walking away from projects mid-construction because the math no longer works. When buildings already under construction get abandoned, the crisis is real. Austin's economy depends almost entirely on tech with no diversification. Tesla, Oracle, Apple, Google, all established major presence over the past decade. Now they're implementing return-to-office mandates requiring only 3 days weekly, meaning they need 30 to 40% less space. That excess hits the market exactly as loans mature. Median home price is still $480,000 despite tech slowdown. That pricing assumes continued job growth and wage increases that aren't happening. When recession hits and layoffs accelerate, Austin's housing market craters simultaneously with commercial real estate. Young tech workers moved for opportunity. When opportunity disappears but cost stays high, they leave. Number 3. San Francisco, California. San Francisco's office vacancy hit 36.7% at the end of 2024. More than 1/3 of all office space sits completely empty. Vacancy was 9% in 2019. 5 years later, it quadrupled. California lost payroll jobs throughout 2025, and unemployment climbed above 5%. San Francisco is twice as dependent on commercial real estate taxes as virtually any other city in America. When those property values collapse in 2026, tax revenue doesn't just decline, it evaporates. 94 million square feet of office space is currently listed for lease. That's a record amount. The city's aging sewer system dumps nearly 2 billion gallons of sewage water into the ocean and San Francisco Bay annually during rainy season. The EPA sued San Francisco for repeatedly violating the Clean Water Act. Since 2016, more than 1.8 billion gallons of untreated sewage have been released yearly. Much of the system is over 100 years old and crumbling. Office-using employment fell by 14,300 positions in 12 months ending April 2025. AI eliminates exactly the high-paying tech jobs that made San Francisco's economy work. Average asking rent is $67.84 per square foot, down from $68.22 previous quarter. When both rent and vacancy decline simultaneously, values crater in real time. Downtown businesses that depend on office workers are closing permanently. The city built around 470,000 people commuting daily downtown. Now it's maybe half that and declining. Number 2. Seattle, Washington. Seattle ties Austin for highest office vacancy at exactly 27%. But Seattle ranks higher because its economy depends on fewer companies. When Amazon and Microsoft implement hiring freezes and space consolidation, Seattle's entire commercial market seizes up. Moody's projects Seattle office vacancy will hit 24% by 2026 and stay there through 2027. If recession hits harder or AI adoption accelerates, vacancy could exceed 30%. Seattle's commercial property values are expected to fall by up to $250 billion by 2026. That's value destruction making 2008 look manageable. Seattle was fined in 2024 for water quality permit violations and sewer overflows. Combined sewers overflowed during heavy storms, despite laws requiring limitation of untreated sewage into rivers in Puget Sound. The city owns aging infrastructure that can't handle climate-related storm increases. Tech accounts for over 30% of Seattle's economy. No other major city is that dependent on a single sector actively shrinking its workforce. When unemployment rises to the 4.6% projected by 2026 consumer spending contracts and the crisis spreads beyond office buildings, average household spends 21% of income on transportation because sprawl makes cars mandatory. When recession hits and both unemployment rises and gas prices spike, households with tight budgets get crushed. The $1.8 trillion in loans maturing includes significant Seattle exposure. Regional banks that lent heavily face borrowers who can't refinance at rates up 75 to 100% from origination. Number 1. Boston, Massachusetts. Boston is closer to crisis mode than any city in America. The city is twice as dependent on commercial real estate taxes as virtually anywhere else. When those property values collapse in 2026 and beyond, Boston's entire fiscal model breaks. Office vacancy hit 20.3% in 2024 and jumped 5.1% in 12 months, one of the sharpest increases nationwide. The city has the largest office construction pipeline in the nation at over 2 million square feet, which will deliver into a market where nobody wants space. That's malinvestment on a historic scale. Boston's commercial real estate represents the largest concentration of value at risk in America. The tax dependency, vacancy acceleration, construction pipeline, and economic structure all align to create perfect disaster. The city depends on financial services, healthcare, and education. Financial services face massive AI-driven job cuts, healthcare stays stable but doesn't grow, and education faces demographic decline. Office-using employment fell by 14,800 positions in 12 months, ending April 2025, second largest decline in America after Los Angeles. Average asking rent fell 1% year over year to $56 per square foot. When asking rents decline while vacancy hits records, property values are cratering. Banks holding maturing commercial loans in 2026 will face buildings worth 50 to 60 cents on the dollar compared to origination. Downtown businesses struggling with reduced foot traffic will face existential crisis. When office workers disappear permanently, restaurants, bars, and retail depending on them can't survive. Boston's position at number 1 comes from convergence. Every city on this list faces some combination of office vacancy, economic vulnerability, and commercial real estate exposure. Boston faces all three at maximum intensity simultaneously. When 2026 hits and loans can't refinance, Boston enters a doom loop. Property values fall, tax revenue drops, services decline, city becomes less desirable, more businesses leave, property values fall further. That cycle is self-reinforcing and difficult to escape. Every city on this list built its tax base on commercial real estate that's about to be revalued downward by 30 to 50%, relies heavily on white-collar jobs, AI, and automation is actively eliminating and borrowed heavily against future growth that simply isn't coming. And the $1.8 trillion in commercial loans maturing in 2026 isn't evenly distributed. It's concentrated in these exact cities, the ones with the highest vacancies, the weakest fundamentals, and the least diversification. When those loans hit maturity and can't be refinanced, the fallout won't be national. It will be local and catastrophic. You can trust the most livable cities lists that ignore basic economics, or you can look at the underlying reality. When commercial real estate implodes and unemployment spikes, where you live becomes one of the most important decisions you make. Subscribe, because soon I'll reveal the 15 best cities to be in when the next financial crash hits. The places that won't just survive, but actually thrive through the 2026 collapse. I'll break down exactly why these cities hold up while everything else falls apart. See you then.